I was 64 years old when I learned what loneliness really meant. My sister Patricia had been gone for 3 months, and the life insurance didn't even cover half of what the hospice care had cost. For the first time in my life, I was completely alone. Patricia and I had lived together for 42 years, never married, never had children, just the two of us in the house our parents left us in Philadelphia. She was the organized one, the one who handled the bills, the paperwork, all the things I never paid attention to. I was the cook, the gardener, the one who made our house feel like a home. We balanced each other perfectly. Then, breast cancer took her in 8 months. I stood in our kitchen that first morning after the funeral, staring at the coffee maker, and realized I'd never made coffee for just one person before. Patricia always drank 2 cups to my 1. I made a full pot anyway, out of habit, and ended up pouring half of it down the sink. That's when I started crying, and I'm not sure I really stopped for the next 2 weeks. The bills started piling up on the dining room table. I'd open them, read the numbers, and feel my chest tighten. Patricia had always handled these things. I didn't even know what half of them were for: property taxes, homeowners insurance, something called escrow that I didn't understand. The medical bills were still coming too, even though she was gone. Each envelope felt like a small knife. I was sinking, and I knew it. That's when I started noticing David. He'd been our mail carrier for years, but I'd never really paid attention. Patricia was always the one who chatted with the mail carriers, the delivery drivers, the neighbors. I was the invisible one, the quiet sister who smiled and waved but never really talked. But now, every day around 2 o'clock, I'd hear the familiar sound of his mail truck pulling up to our mailbox, and I'd find myself walking to the front window. David Chen. I finally learned his name from the ID badge he wore. He was maybe in his early 50s, with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He moved with the efficient rhythm of someone who'd been doing the same job for decades. Rain or shine, snow or heat, David was there at 2 o'clock. One Thursday afternoon, about a month after Patricia died, I worked up the courage to meet him at the mailbox. My hands were shaking as I walked down the front path. I'm not good with people. I never have been. That was always Patricia's department. "Afternoon, Miss Sullivan," he said, and I was surprised he knew my name. "Got some mail for you today." "Thank you," I managed. My voice sounded strange, rusty from disuse. I'd barely spoken to anyone in weeks. He handed me the stack of envelopes, and I saw his eyes flick to my face, taking in what must have been obvious signs of grief and exhaustion. But he didn't pry, didn't ask questions. He just smiled gently and said, "You take care now." That small moment of human kindness broke something open in me. That night, I baked banana bread, the way my mother had taught me. The next day, I was waiting by the mailbox again with a loaf wrapped in aluminum foil. "Mr. Chen," I said, my voice stronger this time. "I baked too much. Would you like some?" His face lit up with genuine surprise and pleasure. "That's very kind of you, Miss Sullivan. I'd love some. My wife always says I never turn down homemade baking." "Please, call me Maggie," I said. "Only if you call me David," he replied with a warm smile. That became our routine. Every few days, I'd bake something: banana bread, chocolate chip cookies, lemon bars, apple muffins, and David would accept it with such genuine gratitude that it made my whole day feel lighter. We'd chat for a few minutes about the weather, the neighborhood, nothing important, but those few minutes became the bright spot in my otherwise empty days. "These oatmeal cookies are incredible," he told me one afternoon. "My wife is going to be jealous of my root." "How long have you been married?" I asked. 28 years, he said proudly. "Susan's a teacher, 2nd grade. She loves it, even though she comes home exhausted every day." "That's wonderful," I said, and I meant it. There was something comforting about his normalcy, his contentment with his simple life. "And you, Maggie? I hope you don't mind me saying, but I used to see your sister at the mailbox. I'm sorry for your loss." My throat tightened. "Thank you. We lived together our whole lives. I'm still figuring out how to do this alone." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "It takes time. Be patient with yourself." Over the next few weeks, David became more than just the mail carrier. He became my one regular human connection. I started timing my baking so I'd have something fresh for him each week. He started lingering a little longer at my mailbox, telling me stories about interesting deliveries or unusual mail he'd encountered. He made me laugh, something I thought I'd forgotten how to do. "You got a package today," he said one Tuesday in late October, handing me a medium-sized box along with the regular mail. "Pretty heavy. Want me to carry it to your porch?" I looked at the label, confused. I hadn't ordered anything. "I don't think this is mine," I said. "Says Margaret Sullivan. This address," David confirmed, reading the label. "That's strange." I turned the box over in my hands. No return address, just a shipping label from some company I'd never heard of. Maybe it's a mistake. "Well, it's addressed to you," David said. "Might as well open it and see." I took it inside and set it on the kitchen table with all the other mail I still hadn't sorted through. I'd gotten so behind on everything. The unopened envelopes were like a small mountain of anxiety. That night, I finally opened the mysterious package. Inside was some kind of medical alert system I definitely hadn't ordered, along with an invoice for $247. My heart sank. I didn't have $247 to spare. I'd been eating canned soup for dinner most nights to save money. The next day, David noticed my distress immediately when he pulled up. "Everything okay, Maggie?" he asked, his face concerned. I showed him the box and the invoice. "I think someone made a mistake. I didn't order this." He examined it carefully, his expression darkening. "Maggie, this isn't a mistake. This is a scam. See here?" He pointed to the fine print. "It says if you don't return it within 10 days, you're agreeing to purchase it. They're banking on people not reading carefully or not knowing they can refuse delivery. But I didn't ask for it." "I know. It's predatory. They target." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "People who live alone, especially seniors. They send unrequested items, then demand payment." I felt my face flush with embarrassment and anger. They were targeting me because I was old and alone and probably looked like an easy mark. "Don't pay it," David said firmly. "I'll help you file a complaint. And Maggie, be careful about any calls or emails you get about this. They'll probably follow up, try to pressure you." "How do you know so much about this?" I asked. His face clouded over. "I've seen it before." "Promise me you'll be careful?" I promised, touched by his concern. But David was right. 2 days later, I got a phone call from a very professional-sounding woman claiming to be from the medical alert company. She said I had an outstanding balance and needed to provide payment information immediately. "I didn't order anything," I told her. "Our records show the device was delivered and accepted," she said smoothly. "If you don't pay, we'll have to send this to collections, which will affect your credit score." I felt my heart racing. I didn't understand credit scores, didn't understand any of this financial stuff. That was Patricia's world, not mine. "I need to think about it," I stammered. "Ma'am, I can offer you a one-time discount if you pay today. Just give me your credit card number." I hung up, my hands shaking. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and cried. I felt so stupid, so overwhelmed, so completely out of my depth. The next day, David took one look at my face and immediately asked what was wrong. I told him about the phone call, about how confused and scared I felt, about how I didn't know how to handle any of this without Patricia. "Maggie," he said gently, "can I ask you something? Have you been getting other unusual mail lately? Offers for services you didn't request? Calls from people claiming to be from banks or government agencies?" I thought about it. Now that he mentioned it, yes. There had been several official-looking letters offering to help me with my late sister's estate, even though Patricia didn't have an estate. There had been calls about my vehicle warranty, even though I didn't own a car. I'd been ignoring most of it, too overwhelmed to deal with it. "I think so," I admitted. David's expression grew serious. "Maggie, I need you to listen to me. I think you're being targeted by a scam ring. These people are sophisticated. They gather information about recent deaths from public records. Then they target the surviving family members. They know you're vulnerable right now." The word vulnerable stung, but I couldn't deny it was true. "What do I do?" I asked, feeling tears prickling my eyes again. "First, don't respond to any of these contacts. Second, let me help you sort through your mail. I'll show you what's legitimate and what's not. And third, He hesitated. "Would you be comfortable if I filed a report with the Postal Inspection Service? They take this stuff seriously." I was so relieved I almost hugged him. "Yes. Please. I don't know what I'd do without you." Over the next week, David became my guardian angel. He started coming by after his route was finished, helping me sort through the mountain of mail I'd been avoiding. We sat at my kitchen table, and he patiently explained what each piece of paper meant. "This is junk. Throw it away. This is a real bill. You need to pay it. This is a scam. Definitely a scam. This one's legitimate, but you can ignore it for now." He showed me how to recognize the warning signs of fraudulent mail, how the really dangerous ones often looked the most official, how they used fear and urgency to pressure people into making quick decisions. "The key thing to remember," he told me, "is that legitimate companies don't demand immediate payment over the phone. They don't threaten you. They don't ask for your banking information out of the blue." I made us tea while we worked, and for the first time since Patricia died, the house felt less empty. David told me more about his life, his wife Susan, their daughter Rachel, who was studying veterinary medicine in California, their son Michael, who was a chef in New York. He showed me pictures on his phone, clearly proud of his kids. "You have a beautiful family," I said, meaning it. "I'm very lucky," he agreed. Then his face grew sad. "I just wish I'd been there more for my mom before she passed." "What do you mean?" I asked gently. He was quiet for a moment, stirring his tea. "She died 4 years ago, alone in her apartment. She'd been scammed out of most of her savings, but I didn't know until it was too late. I was so busy with work, with my own family, that I didn't notice the signs. She was too proud to ask for help, too embarrassed to tell me what had happened. My heart ached for him. "David, I'm so sorry." "She fell for one of those phone scams," he continued, his voice heavy with guilt. "Someone claiming to be from the IRS, saying she owed back taxes and would be arrested if she didn't pay immediately. She withdrew her savings, $40,000, and sent it in gift cards. By the time I found out, she'd already spent her rent money trying to fix the problem. She was being evicted." "That's terrible," I whispered. "I moved her in with us, of course, but the stress of it all. She had a stroke 3 months later. The doctor said the stress probably contributed." He looked up at me, his eyes red. "I should have been paying attention. I should have checked on her more often. I should have noticed she was in trouble." "It wasn't your fault," I said firmly. "Those people are criminals. They prey on good people." "I know. But knowing doesn't make it easier." After she died, I learned everything I could about these scams. I started paying closer attention to my route, to the people I deliver to, especially people living alone, especially seniors. I see the pattern now, the predatory mailers, the phone scams, all of it. And when I see it, I can't just walk away. Now I understood. This wasn't just about me. This was about his mother, about the guilt he carried, about trying to save people he couldn't save before. "You've been watching out for me," I said softly. "I have," he admitted. "I'm sorry if that seems intrusive. But Maggie, when I saw your sister's obituary in the paper, and then started noticing the type of mail you were getting, I couldn't ignore it. Not again." I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Thank you. You probably saved me from making a terrible mistake." We filed the postal inspection report together. David also helped me register with the Do Not Call list, set up fraud alerts on my credit, and taught me how to spot suspicious emails. But more than that, he gave me something I desperately needed: confidence. The confidence to say no, to ask questions, to trust my instincts. The scam calls didn't stop immediately, but now I knew how to handle them. I'd hang up without guilt. I'd throw away suspicious mail without opening it. I started keeping a log of scam attempts, which David said would help the investigation. But our friendship grew beyond just fraud prevention. David brought his wife Susan by one Saturday afternoon. She was warm and funny, with the patient energy of someone who spent her days with 7-year-olds. She admired my garden and asked for my banana bread recipe. "David's been raving about your baking for months," she said. I was getting jealous. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in a year. "I'm just glad someone appreciates it. I was baking for two for so long, I don't know how to scale down recipes." "Well, you've got 2 eager taste testers here anytime you need them," Susan said warmly. They invited me over for Thanksgiving dinner. I almost said no. I didn't want to intrude on their family time, but Susan insisted. Our kids are both out of state this year, she said. It's just going to be David and me rattling around in that big house. Please come. I'd love the company. Thanksgiving Day. I showed up at their door with my famous sweet potato casserole and a pumpkin pie. Their home was cozy and lived in, full of photos and books and the comfortable clutter of a long, happy marriage. Over dinner, David told Susan the full story of how he'd helped me navigate the scam attempts. She reached over and squeezed his hand. He's been on a mission since his mom passed, she said to me. He's helped at least a dozen people on his root spot scams. The Postal Inspection Service even asked him to do a training session for new carriers. Really? I asked, impressed. David looked embarrassed but pleased. It just felt like something I needed to do. Mom was so sharp her whole life, and then these people took advantage of her in her most vulnerable moment. If I can prevent that from happening to even one person, it's worth it. You've definitely prevented it from happening to me, I said. I was in such a fog after Patricia died. I would have fallen for those scams. I know I would have. But you didn't, David said. And that matters. After dinner, while Susan was making coffee, David showed me his wall of saves, as Susan called it. It was a bulletin board in his home office covered with thank you cards and photos. These are all people I've helped? I asked, amazed. Yep. This is Mrs. Chen. No relation. She was about to send $5,000 to a fake grandchild emergency scam. This is Mr. Patterson caught him just before he gave his banking information to a fake IRS caller. This is the Rodriguez family. They were being targeted by a deed theft scheme. Each card told a story of someone who'd been saved from financial devastation, often by David simply paying attention and speaking up. You're a hero, I said. I'm not a hero, he said quietly. Heroes save people. I couldn't save Mom. But maybe I can make sure other people's moms and sisters and grandparents don't end up like her. I understood then that David and I were helping each other in ways that went beyond fraud prevention. He was giving me the protection and attention he wished he'd given his mother. And I was giving him the opportunity to make peace with his guilt, to transform his regret into something meaningful. 3 months after Thanksgiving, I got a call from the Postal Inspection Service. They'd broken up the scam ring that had been targeting me, along with dozens of other recent widows and widowers in the Philadelphia area. 15 people had been arrested. They estimated the ring had stolen over $2 million from vulnerable seniors. You helped us make this case, the inspector told me. Your detailed log of contacts, the evidence you preserved, it was crucial. When I told David, he pulled me into a tight hug right there on my front porch. You did it, Maggie. You helped catch them. We did it, I corrected. I never would have known what to look for without you. That evening, we had a celebration dinner at my house. Me, David, Susan, and 3 other seniors from David's root who he'd helped over the years. We called ourselves the 2 O'Clock Club, since that's when David made his rounds. Mrs. Chen brought dumplings. Mr. Patterson brought wine. The Rodriguez family brought tamales. I made my banana bread, of course, and a lasagna that had been Patricia's favorite recipe. As we sat around my dining room table, laughing and sharing stories, I realized something. This table had been empty for so long. Patricia and I had always kept to ourselves, never hosted dinners or parties. We'd been content with just each other. But now, in her absence, I'd found something Patricia and I had never had. A community. A chosen family of people brought together by David's kindness and vigilance. I want to propose a toast, David said, raising his glass. To Maggie, for trusting a nosy mail carrier. To all of us, for looking out for each other. And to my mom, who I know would be proud that something good came from something so painful. To family, Susan added. The ones we're born with and the ones we choose. To family, we all echoed. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and I was washing dishes, I found myself crying again. But this time, they weren't tears of loneliness or grief. They were tears of gratitude. Patricia would have liked David and Susan, I thought. She would have approved of this new life I was building, these new connections I was making. She'd always wanted me to be less isolated, less dependent on just her. I dried my hands and walked over to the mantel where I kept Patricia's photo. I'm doing okay, sissy, I told her picture. I'm really doing okay. The next day, David delivered my mail as usual. But this time, when he handed me the stack of envelopes, there was a greeting card on top. "What's this?" I asked. "Just open it," he said with a smile. Inside was a card from Susan, with a photo. It showed all of us from last night's dinner, gathered around my table, smiling and raising our glasses. Below the photo, Susan had written, "The 2 o'clock Club, official charter members. Same time next month?" I looked up at David, my eyes blurry with happy tears. "I'd love that." "Good," he said, "because Susan's already planning the menu. Fair warning, she's very competitive about potlucks." I laughed. Then I'd better step up my game. As David walked back to his mail truck, I stood on my porch holding that card, feeling the warm November sun on my face. I was 64 years old, and for the first time in my life, I was learning that family wasn't just about blood. It was about showing up. It was about paying attention. It was about someone caring enough to notice when you're in trouble and brave enough to help. It was about banana bread and 2 o'clock visits and second chances. It was about a mail carrier who turned his biggest regret into his greatest gift. And it was about a lonely widow who learned that the end of one chapter didn't have to mean the end of the story. It was about all of us, really. Broken people helping other broken people, creating something whole and beautiful from our shared pain. I looked down at the photo one more time, at all those faces around my table, and I smiled. Patricia would have definitely approved.